You know, we all have a version of history stored in our heads. It's like a timeline of big events, famous people, and all the empires that rose and fell. But what if that story, the one we all sort of agreed on, is actually kind of blurry? What if the very way we look at the past is preventing us from seeing what really happened and what that means for our future? To get to the bottom of that, we have to start with a really simple question.
So, just for a second, think about world history, or the international system. What's the starting point that jumps into your mind? When do you think it all really got started? For a lot of us, a date like 1648 probably comes to mind. The Peace of Westphalia, right? It's often taught as this big bang moment for how countries deal with each other, the birth of the modern state. It sounds so neat and tidy. But that very starting point is exactly what we need to start questioning.
See, being so focused on one clean, simple date isn't just a quirky detail. It's actually a symptom of a much bigger problem. It's like a fog that's clouding our whole view of the past.
This core problem, it actually has a name: tempocentrism. It's this unconscious habit we all have of looking at the past as if people back then basically thought like we do now, with the same priorities and logic. We're essentially projecting our modern-day operating system onto a world that was running on completely different software. And the real danger here is that this bias flattens history out. It makes it feel like this one simple straight line that leads directly to, well, to us. It completely ignores all the other detours, the other possibilities, and it reduces this incredibly rich, complicated past into just a simple prequel for our own times. And this tempocentrism, it really traps our thinking in two specific ways. First, it gets us obsessed with just a handful of pretty recent dates. And second, it makes us think there's only one way for a country to look and act.
I mean, think about it. The standard timeline we learn is built around just a few of these benchmark dates. But notice the pattern? They're all relatively recent in the grand scheme of things. And they're all centered on the story of Europe and the West. This isn't really world history. It's one very specific, very narrow version of it.
So by focusing so tightly on these few dates, we're basically hitting delete on thousands of years of human experience. We completely miss the fact that Europeans were, in many ways, latecomers to a global scene that had been buzzing for millennia, connecting Africa, Asia, and the Indian Ocean. We're ignoring entire empires and different ways of life that had their own complex systems.
But the problem goes even deeper than just the dates we choose. It's actually baked into the very models we use to classify and understand different human societies.
I'm sure you've seen some version of this evolutionary ladder before, right? This idea that humanity neatly progresses through these stages, from supposedly primitive bands and tribes, climbing all the way up to the grand finale, the modern state. The state is always presented as the absolute peak, the goal of all political evolution.
But this model is seriously flawed. It's basically a relic from 19th century colonial thinking, and it was designed to create a hierarchy that, surprise, surprise, put Western nations at the very top. It just arbitrarily slaps labels like underdeveloped on any society that doesn't fit neatly into the Western box. I mean, the word tribe itself has been used for centuries to devalue other cultures.
As the source material puts it so powerfully, we literally get caged by these ladders. They don't just give us a wrong picture of the past. They actively shrink our imagination. They stop us from seeing and learning from the full, messy, and fascinating diversity of how human beings have actually organized themselves throughout time.
Okay, so if these dates and ladders are basically a cage, how do we break out? Well, we need a new toolkit, and we can start with a totally different way of thinking about time itself.
The historian Fernand Braudel gave us this incredible metaphor. He said that all the big events we focus on, the battles, the treaties, the elections, they're just the foam on the surface of the ocean. To really understand what's going on, you have to look deeper.
So Braudel saw time as having three distinct layers, all moving at different speeds. Up top, you have the fast-moving political events. That's the foam. Then, underneath that, you have the slower social and economic trends that play out over decades. But way down at the bottom, you have what he called the longue durée. These are the deep, almost geological currents of history. Things like climate, geography, and those really deep-seated cultural beliefs that change incredibly slowly, over centuries.
So what this means is that a big event, like a revolution, doesn't just happen out of nowhere. It happens because that single event is the moment when all those deeper, slower forces finally break through to the surface. To really get it, you have to see how all these layers are interacting. You have to look at the deep currents, not just the foam on the waves. All right, so we've got a new way to see time. Now we need a new word for how people organize themselves. We've got to get beyond this rigid idea of the state.
Instead of the very strict concept of the state, which implies these fixed borders and total control, scholars suggest using a much more flexible word, polity. A polity is a much broader idea. It can describe a huge empire, a network of independent city-states, a nomadic confederation, a bunch of clans. It understands that for most of history, power was fluid and messy and overlapping, not packed into neat little boxes on a map.
And here's the kicker. The kind of sovereign state we think of as normal today, it's not the norm of human history at all. It's actually a very recent and pretty specific exception. For thousands of years, humanity has been experimenting with this incredible variety of other successful and long-lasting ways of living together.
Okay, so this is all really interesting historical theory, but why does it matter right now, today? Well, the answer is actually incredibly urgent, because our narrow view of the past is crippling our ability to solve the problems of the present.
Just think about the biggest challenges we're all facing. Climate change didn't just start 50 years ago, it has roots that go back centuries in industrialization and our whole relationship with nature. Global inequality has a deep history steeped in colonialism and empires. These aren't short-term problems, these are problems of the longue durée. See, if we're only looking at the last 70 or 80 years, there's no way we can possibly grasp the true scale of these issues. But by looking into our deep past, by understanding all the different kinds of polities and how they adapted or failed to adapt to change, we suddenly have a much richer and more creative toolkit to work with.
And that really is the ultimate takeaway here. When we cage ourselves in this narrow, tempocentric and Eurocentric version of history, we're not just getting the past wrong, we are also caging our own imaginations. We convince ourselves that the way things are now is the only way they can be, because we've blinded ourselves to all the other ways things have been. So this leaves us with a final, and I think really crucial question. If our view of the past has been this narrow for so long, what possibilities for the future are we missing? By expanding our historical vision, by looking beyond that foam on the waves to see the deep currents, what alternative solutions, what different ways of living together on this planet might we finally begin to see? What futures become possible when we unlock the full story of our past?